Are you interested in becoming a permanent part of the channel or having a direct impact on the type of content that I create? Well, now you can check out the Alliteration Gaming Patreon. Throughout it, you're going to find a handful of different tiers that can include special perks like shoutouts on the supporter card at the beginning of all my videos, access to the private channel in my Discord, and the ability to watch all of my content on Patreon a couple weeks early and totally ad-free. On top of that, the different video tiers will let you commission videos directly from me. We can build a deck together, you can send me some gameplay to commentate, or even select a character for me to spotlight. You can also now join the Alliteration Nation by becoming a channel member on YouTube. Pledging your subscription here is going to grant you a same spot on that supporter card and access to that same Discord channel, as well as hook you up with a member's badge that levels up and access to emotes when I stream on YouTube. I'm going to have the Patreon link down below to check out, and the Discord should you want to join that. And if you want to become a channel member, the join button is what you want to hit. If you end up supporting my work in any way, thank you so much. I'm incredibly grateful, and I can't wait to provide you with more top-notch content at my trademark top speed. Now, let's get on to the video. Good evening, my dear viewers, and welcome to another Alliteration gaming video. My name's Levi, and we have another spotlight today. This is going to be courtesy of Brian Connolly. We will be taking a look at the newest version of everyone's favorite homeroom teacher, Eraserhead number 3. Eraserhead 3 is a 5-hand size character. He's got 29 health and he's sporting the all, life, and void symbols. The first thing you're going to notice on this guy is that he's actually only a 5 difficulty character. And he has a static ability that plain Eraserhead character cards costs 3 less. Now, why is this relevant? That's because if you look down there at his response, it says that every time we play a character card, we get to draw 2 cards and seal a foundation. This is how our erasure quirk gets reflected in this iteration of Aizawa, in what is most definitely the most interesting way yet. This version of Eraserhead encourages us to play extra character cards inside of our deck to garner extra benefits. Defensively, this is great. Blocking with +0 mid blocks and then drawing 2 and sealing a card is very, very good. Offensively though, these Eraserheads are going to be stuck in our card pool doing nothing but wrecking our progressive difficulty. Or will they be? That's where our enhance comes in. Eraserhead says that our attacks will always be loaded up with both +1 speed and +1 damage for every single card in our pool that is not an attack. This means foundations, actions, and of course, character cards. So, as you can see, we're rewarded for playing those extra Eraserheads, and we're also going to be taking some very interesting lines with playing foundations and looking for actions that do things inside of our card pool. If you thought playing more characters in your deck was already unconventional, playing with an ability like this to get some massive stats going will make you do some very unique things. Furthermore, the second time that we activate this ability, we get to say that our next attack that follows comes in without worrying about progressive difficulty. This is going to make dealing with all of those extra cards that we're putting into our pool for our bonus stats much easier, and it really leads us into playing some bizarre lines. Now, all of this might sound very out of pocket, but thankfully our symbols do provide us with a nice array of cards that can help us interact with these abilities in spades. With Eraserhead 3, you're going to be able to string together tons of intricate sequencing, snipe your rival's key answers, and chain and combo them into submission with tons of stats. Now, if you're no stranger to this game, there's probably one massive card that immediately came to your mind when you're reading this Eraserhead's strange playstyle, and that is Staff Strike. Now, fortunately, we share 2 symbols with it. This does leave Void out to dry a little bit, so All in Life are really going to be your go-tos, as Staff Strike is just the pinnacle of our playstyle. Loading up foundations into your card pool, drawing tons of cards, gaining stats off of them as well, and then letting your next 2 weapons ignore progressive so that we can still play the game with that loaded up card pool and still get all of our bonus stats. That is everything that Eraserhead needs to enable his game plan. That is also not the only way to benefit from a character that wants non-attacks in our pool, as it lets us play beautifully with cards like Flame Flicker and Capturing Net. They let us gain some extra stats off of our actions or foundations that we play first. Binding Cloth Precision almost feels like it was made for Eraser 3 more than Eraser 2, as playing foundations is often how you get to it being the 5th card in your pool. That's especially easier when it's ignoring progressive, and especially sweeter with an extra +4 speed and damage on it. So between our character and all of those cards we just saw, stuffing our pool with tons of non-attacks is starting to look like it's got some real value. But how exactly are we getting those cards there? Where are they all coming from? Well, Get Loud and the new Insulation Cloth are going to do a great job at loading non-attacks into our pool. Meanwhile, Binding Cloth Assault can combo up and draw even more cards for us to fuel this strategy with. Now, it will need to be preceded by a weapon, but thankfully that plays beautifully into a lot of the moves we've seen so far and that we'll continue to see. Another unique way of getting non-attacks into your pool is by turning your attacks that are already in there into them. In addition to fueling our staff strikes like nothing else, Insulation Cloth alongside Fierce Whirlwind and Throwing Knife Lunge all have the ability to flip themselves in the card pool, thus fueling our characters' enhance even more. Speaking of fueling us, we are looking at some really crazy combos and strings here, so we're going to need some help. Eraserhead himself is going to let us play our third attack for free, but we do have to play a couple moves to get to that point, probably while weaving through a very strange card pool as well. That is where our extenders come in. With cards like Instant Shining Flash and Binding Shoulder Rush, you're going to be able to apply a nice little cushion to a bunch of your really expensive plays. And speaking of those expensive plays, let's take a look at all the gnarly ways we have to close the game out on our packages. Eraserhead is going to be pumping so many stats, so honestly, just about everything that we're playing is going to get scary once our deck is really firing off. But all those stats pumped onto something like a Total Erasure Binding can be that much more threatening. Finishers like these are really where the all symbol gets to shine as our choice over life as a staff strike symbol. But we can also just go the classic Void route of ripping their whole hand apart with things like Cloth Capture and Blood Moon Rending. Cloth Capture is especially nice in this Eraserhead, as we've got a ton of very spicy actions we can play that we're going to see later on. Now we have talked oh so much about non-attack cards in theory, but let's finally actually take a look at them. Kicking it off with our foundations, some of our most key players are going to lie here. A core part of our foundations will be all about ones that play well within our card pool. We want foundations that can be played into our attacks or can hop right into the card pool themselves. Either way, we're getting stats on stats out of them. All Might's Mentorship and Hero's Inspiration both really make this Eraserhead tick. They give us some great draw and filtering power while playing perfectly within our mechanics. All Might's Mentorship gives us our stats without having to worry about more progressive, and once you start looping Hero's Inspiration with Capturing Net, you're really going to realize how hard the card advantage can start flowing. Ideally, we also want our stage loaded up with foundations that can help us get through all that progressive in the first place. We've seen a ton of binding cards, so Cloth Mastery might just be perfect for us. And truly, no staff strike is complete trying to play that card on an 8 without a little bit of advice for winners. Now the next group of foundations that I want to talk about is a little interesting, because what they all have in common has nothing to do with their effects. We're going to be talking about a huge array of weapon foundations. Why? Well, we've been talking an awful lot about combos, but Eraser's strange playstyle means you have to be very careful with your combo cards. However, the inverse also reigns true when your combos can ask for non-attack cards, just like our character. Staff Strike, alongside all of its combo weapon friends, are great in Eraser because they let us combo with weapon foundations, not just attacks. This means that every card pictured here can fuel both our characters and our combos. On top of that, Rising Starlet is just great for bringing things back down to our pool after we're done pumping stats, and Preparing for Battle can fix our hand up and dig even deeper into our deck for some combos. We also gain a lot of utility in our weapons. Intimidating Presence and Citywide Crisis can punish our rival for readying foundations and drawing cards. Meanwhile, Web of Blades and Floating Around My Babies are really great at padding out our stats some more. The last point that I've got to stress with our foundations is that we are a 5-hand size character, trying to pull off a ton of crazy combos and crazy strings with some very specific pieces. Lord knows we need some card draw. Now all of our symbols have their fingers in a lot of nice card draw pies. Chivalrous Competitor and Calling for Backup are really great one-time use spams for draw power, but life really gets to flex here, with the repeatable card draw coming in from Excited for Blood and Passing the Torch. These cards are all going to play a big part in digging through our deck and helping us put these crazy equations together. Life also gets access to some utility card advantage. Uraraka's encouragement lets us go and grab our Eraserhead characters to use, and new training method lets you grab those clutch foundations for our plan that we saw earlier. You can never have too much card draw either, because all of this draw in tandem with our character's own draw too means that all of those extra cards we end up with can always be fuel for the likes of Snack Time and Prone to Dry Eyes. Now we're going to start talking about cards in our deck that aren't attacks or foundations, but rather than dive deep into our assets first like we usually do, we're going to talk about characters as well. Now, due to our response, we're really encouraged to throw more copies of our very own Eraserhead 3 into our deck. Our Eraserhead 3s are basically 2 difficulty actions that say draw 2 and seal something. That is amazing. But if we happen to go with one of the constant eraser symbols in all or void, we can even play the previous iterations of Eraserhead as 3 difficulty actions that do the same thing. Regardless of where we end up though, Quick Creation should 100% be the asset inside of your all or life eraser decks. Being able to fuel your card pool even more and pumping stats by itself is just so strong. It also combos exceptionally well with things like Capturing Net and Rising Starlet to turn those slotted in cards into free builds sometimes. Now earlier I promised some very spicy actions, and it's time to deliver. The Future Is Now and Flex Your Might are huge for Eraserhead 3. Flex Your Might being an action that does not count towards progressive is big. It fuels all of our attacks for free, as well as providing some huge on-hit pressure. The Future Is Now gives us access to some incredibly heinous lines, letting us play it after our first attack, play a couple foundations that we're going to get tons of stats, then playing our second attack with no progressive difficulty, and coming in with tons of combined buffs from our action and our character. The Future Is Now even stays in the card pool for even more stats, and then we get to use Eraserhead to make the third attack ignore progressive as well. The utility does not stop there though, because don't forget that we're Eraserhead. That means we get full access to Erase and its response, as well as Nullify for many control options. Another big downside of Nullify is that it doesn't leave the card pool like most actions, but in Eraserhead, that alongside stuff like Teamwork staying in the card pool can all actually become upsides in our character. That's going to conclude our showcase today on Eraserhead 3. Big thanks again to Brian for commissioning this video, and if you enjoyed or learned anything from it, I would love some positive feedback down below. And if you want to choose your own character for me to spotlight just like this, you can check out my Patreon link down below in the description and in the pinned comments. Thanks so much for supporting the channel no matter how you do it, and I really appreciate you making it to the end of this video. That's all the time I've got for today, but I hope I can see you in the next one.